I was just with the president in the Oval Office, and I can confirm that tomorrow, the February 1st deadline that President Trump put into place at a statement several weeks ago continues. The president will be implementing tomorrow a 25% tariffs on Mexico, 25% tariffs on Canada, and a 10% tariff on China. These are promises made and promises kept by the president.
Promises made, promises kept. That will be happening. 25% for Mexico, 25% for Canada. 10% tariffs on China. There was a bit of a market reaction. You can see the Dow off more than 200 points. If you pop up the big board, John, you'll see right about the time she confirmed that these will begin tomorrow, shortly after the 1 o'clock Eastern time hour. That's when you saw the Dow sell off.
Oh, that's gotta hurt!
Okay, it's one thing when most Americans not cocooned off from reality are saying, wow, this guy's doing a terrible job already. When the SOS is coming from inside that cocoon, both from supporters and media outlets, usually offering nothing but a megaphone to spread propaganda, then you know it's pretty bad.
On the crash, do you have any concerns that your commentary about things you have described as common sense or your observations could in any way interfere with the thorough investigation of the crash?
No, I think they'll do an investigation. It'll probably come out the way I said it.
The president issued executive orders pausing funding for diversity, equity, and inclusion, critical race theory, radical transgender ideology, sex changes.
I'm just, because the judge said, that there was going to be stopped.
Either I can answer the question or I can't.
Yesterday, as Americans waited to hear from the president on the deadliest commercial plane incident since 2009, he did what all fake Christians do. He offered a moment of silence and prayer, swiftly followed by a diatribe against diversity hiring and his allegation without evidence that lowered standards were to blame for the crash.
Mr. President, on DEI and the claims that you've made, are you saying this crash was somehow caused and the result of diversity hiring? And what evidence have you seen to support these claims?
It just could have been. We have a high standard. We've had a much higher standard than anybody else. And there are things where you have to go by brain power. You have to go by psychological quality. And psychological quality is a very important element of it. These are various very powerful tests that we put to use, and they were terminated by Biden. And Biden went by a standard that's the exact opposite. So we don't know, but we do know that you had two planes at the same level. You had a helicopter and a plane. That shouldn't have happened. And we'll see. We're going to look into that. We're going to see. But certainly for an air traffic controller, we want the brightest, the smartest, the sharpest. We want somebody that's psychologically superior. And that's what we're going to have. Yeah. Yeah, please, go ahead.
By the way, in every moment since, when asked for clarity or whether this was what victims' families really needed to hear at this moment as they grieve, he's just doubled down and tripled down.
With the thorough investigation of the crash?
No, I think they'll do an investigation. It'll probably come out the way I said it. I like to put it up front. I'm so tired of listening to things happen to our country and then people say, we'll do an investigation, and 3 years later they come out with a report that nobody looks at. Especially, not in all cases can you do that, but in this case, you know, you had a helicopter that was, the Black Hawk was too high. It was above the 200 limit by double. It shouldn't have been there. And there were some other mistakes made too, and I pointed them out also, and I was right on all of it. But they'll still do an investigation just to check it out. But I think that's
Commander-in-Chief, are you
you know, 64 people lost their lives last night. If you aren't confident that DEI had any role, why bring it up?
Well, all I'm talking about is competence, and we want in that particular position, we have to have the most competent people in our country.
To the point that fellow Republicans and even Fox News have done everything possible to try to distance themselves from the ever so despicable Commander-in-Chief's comments.
I must say, I was disgusted at the blame game that came from our president. I was disgusted because now we found out that the two pilots are white males. When you hear DEI, when you hear blame to Joe Biden, when you hear blame to Democrats, to Barack Obama, this is not a partisan issue. This is, I would agree with George P. here 100%. This is something, there are people who are going to bury their children. I've buried a child. They don't want to hear the politics. They want to hear what caused this crash and how do we prevent other people from having their kids pulled out of the Potomac in the future.
This agency is riddled with DEI problems and hiring problems, and that it's inevitable something's going to happen. So it's sad that Trump has inherited this, but I think that he's moving quickly to clean it up.
Do you have any evidence, though, sir, that any of those hires were, in fact, DEI hires?
Not until we get into the investigation. At the end of the day, it's where is their focus? What is their mission? They need to. We need every agency of the federal government to be focused on merit, especially in air traffic control. We want the brightest, the quickest minds, and the most talented individuals we can.
It appears that it is not just his rhetoric over the tragedy that has Fox News deviate from their usual programming, but Trump's pledge to implement his sweeping tariffs. A mere moments after Trump's press secretary said that the president will be implementing 25% tariffs on Mexico, 25% on Canada, and a 10% tariff on China over the weekend, well, this happened.
Friends at Reuters are reporting that the president has made a decision on the Canada and Mexico tariffs, but that they won't actually be implemented until March 1st. I was wondering if you could confirm that and talk through some of the president's thinking.
I saw that report and it is false. I was just with the president in the Oval Office, and I can confirm that tomorrow, the February 1st deadline that President Trump put into place at a statement several weeks ago continues. The president will be implementing tomorrow a 25% tariffs on Mexico, 25% tariffs on Canada, and a 10% tariff on China for the illegal fentanyl that they have sourced and allowed to distribute into our country, which has killed tens of millions of Americans. These are promises made and promises kept by the president.
The president yesterday said that last night
he said promises made, promises kept. That will be happening. 25% for Mexico, 25% for Canada, 10% tariffs on China. There was a bit of a market reaction. You can see the Dow off more than 200 points. If you pop up the big board, John, you'll see right about the time she confirmed that these will begin tomorrow, shortly after the 1 o'clock Eastern time hour. That's when you saw the Dow sell off. Not a huge sell off, but there was certainly a reaction to that.
Well, they have still got 10 hours to try to avoid tariffs before they snap into place at 12:01 a.m. So I wouldn't be surprised if the president hears from Canada and hears from Mexico and maybe even gets a call from his friend Xi Jinping. Don't know.
Now let's keep in mind that this is the same network that once claimed that stocks were soaring under the Biden administration out of anticipation of Trump's return. Yes, really, more than once they said that.
It's up around 400 points. The Kudlow Trust is doing well. Techs and AI stocks are leading the way. Now, former President Trump has said the market is rallying because he's going to be reelected president. Others believe the market is rallying because Joe Biden is going to be defeated. Whoops, I think that's the same thing.
Before being forced to walk back their remarks and just admit that, yeah, the economy was doing good under Biden.
But almost surely the economy is headed for a significant slump. Now, it suffered inflationary recession in the first half of 2022, may be headed for a deflationary recession next year, 2024. Look, it was a good quarter. Don't get me wrong. 3.3% beat estimates. And the last quarter was a good quarter, 4.9%. Absolutely. So he gets his due. If I were he, I'd be out slinging that hash too. No problem. My mea culpa, I was wrong about the slowdown in the recession. So was the entire...
In response to Trump's promise regarding tariffs, Canada MP Charlie Angus had this to say.
We are here this morning, my friends, as an unlikely group with leaders from across the political spectrum who've come together with cultural leaders, artists, academics, athletes, labor activists, and indigenous militant activists. We represent the incredible regions of our beautiful country, and we are here for one reason. Our nation, our beloved Canada, is under threat. It is an economic threat, but it's also a threat to our values of decency and inclusion. It's a threat to our sovereignty and our very future as a nation. The threat comes, of course, from the President of the United States, a convicted felon and known predator. He's threatening massive tariffs to try and break us as a people. But the threat is also being driven by the hate algorithms of the oligarchs like Elon Musk. And there is the threat from people in our own country, who would sell out our birthright to appease the gangster class from Mar-a-Lago. That is not going to happen.
And here's what I'll say, right? Looking at just these 2 weeks, it is clear that the Trump administration have no intention of taking accountability for any wrongdoing or the repercussions of their actions. I mean, just listen to the answer his press secretary gave when she was asked, if these tariffs don't work, how will that impact the American people and what will you do in response?
And he will continue to effectively utilize tariffs.
If tariffs do increase prices for Americans, will the administration reverse them?
That's a hypothetical question, and the president is intent on ensuring that he effectively implements tariffs while cutting inflation and costs for the American people. And, you know, the media has this way of just looking at everything in a microscope rather than looking at the whole of government economic approach that this president is taking. He will effectively implement tariffs. He's also, as I just answered from Stephen's question, committed to tax cuts. He's also clearly committed, as evidenced by his executive orders, to unleashing the might of our energy industry, which we know will eventually drive down inflation, and all the other economic measures that this president has made.
And this is what makes the job of journalists indispensable at this time. We need more people like Caitlin Collins on hand. We've seen networks already cow to Trump's agenda, billionaires bending the knee and changing their entire platform. But it is so vital that journalists just refuse to accept answers like this verbatim.
We don't even yet know the names of the 67 people who were killed, and you are blaming Democrats and DEI policies and air traffic control and seemingly the member of the U.S. military who was flying that Black Hawk helicopter. Don't you think you're getting ahead of the investigation right now?
No, I don't think so at all. I don't think with the names of the people, you mean the names of the people that are on the plane, you think that's going to make a difference?
Does it comfort their families?
They are a group of people that have lost their lives. If you want a list of the names, we can give you that. We'll be giving that very soon. We're in coordination with American Airlines. We're in coordination very strongly, obviously, with the military. But I think that's not a very smart question. I'm surprised coming from you.
Are you blaming
Because think about it, when even Fox News aren't willing to digest it with their immense tolerance for snake oil, you know it's absolute BS.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.